Time for another draft physics, draft science here on YouTube. Video presentation. Should be a quick video. Just go over the basics and such. Do one comment maybe. There was a couple of comments by the troll, the cowboy. As stated, I'm just going to delete all comments by any account that's less than a week old. But anyway, and he went to the trouble to post it twice, which was really stupid. I probably shouldn't have deleted the second one, just because it goes to the trouble to make fake accounts for this purpose. Basically saying something stupid. There's some adage that you don't interrupt the person who's doing with a critique or something. Somehow we shouldn't critique anybody. Yeah, we should. We should interrupt. The fact that you idiots haven't interrupted is why everything's broken. Duh. So yes, there should have been lots of interruptions in the last 200 years of human history, because lots of stupid things happened because nobody got in the way, nobody interrupted. But anyway, and then he says that it's a fact that there is force-on-force interactions, that somehow light photons have interacted with photons, and that's just nonsense. There's no experiment where a photon interacts with another photon. It's just stupid. It always has to interact with matter. It always has to be in a medium. You have to be hitting electrons. It's just a fact. And so he just overtly lies as if there's this evidence, and then he says, well, I'm not going to clue you in. Oh, so he it's not even like everybody knows it. It's not like it's some famous experiment. Yes, he's implying it is. So anyway, it's just a lie, a stupid, ignorant, dumb lie. And you're just saying, why are you interrupting me with a dumb lie? I mean, you can't do better than that? I mean, you can't do better than harassing the person who lives in the house I live in? You can't do anything better than that? That's the best argument you can make? I mean, it's just funny. And then he talks about that it's all a big fun to watch me as if I'm a mental case and this is all psychology going on, when you're clearly the one who's got the fucked up stalker psychology. I mean, here, hundreds of accounts you've made to just sit there and post really trivially stupid lies. Like, photons have been demonstrated to interact with photons, or photons have been demonstrated to act with a magnetic field, or photons have been demonstrated to do any of this other stuff, when there is absolutely no evidence of any of that. So, I mean, you're this psychopath. You have no argument to make, and you're going to all this trouble to make all these sock accounts, do all this harassing. Why? Why don't you make videos about your profound philosophy so other people can do to you what you're doing to me and say, look, what a great argument I'm making. I'm harassing the fuck out of you. Isn't that making a great argument? No, it's a pitifully stupid argument. So again, $1,500 offered for a channel with 100,000 subscribers to just answer my questions. You don't have to debate me. Just answer my fucking questions. Give me an hour of your time where you answer questions. What's the big deal? Why is that such an inconvenience? If I'm so wrong, why aren't they taking the money? Yeah, the answer's obvious. Cowards, okay? Because, yes, there's a very good chance they're not going to like the questions, and they're not going to like having to answer them. Yeah, so that's all you can say about that. I did mention, some guy asked about the other guy, and he did bail out. So, I mean, it's just, But yes, so a regular physics person, $50 an hour for your time. If you got a crappy YouTube channel, I'll pay you $400. Come on. What's the big deal? Anyway, cowards. Anyway, it's just amazing. So then Tween Tro, he's got to fix that name. Anyway, it would be great if Veritasium would debate you. It'd be great if Veritasium would answer critics. And, people who are in this business should want to do that. I mean, I want to satisfy the critics, the trolls. But they just keep trolling with crap I've already gone over. They just don't come up with anything that's relevant or on the subject. They just don't. It's all public videos. I mean, it's all, you've seen it all. You've seen their arguments, and they're terrible. All right. But it would never happen. The guy wouldn't be able to debate in spite of having a physics education research degree. Yeah, well, it's really not about debating again. It's just about recognizing, admitting, okay, the chicanery. So, I mean, you ask Veritasium the simple question. Don't you think if you had a photo detector that was getting 7 random photons a second, would you use it in an experiment where you're trying to detect 1 photon at a time? I mean, it's getting 7 wrong photons a second. It's probably not the right thing to use, you know, for a single photon experiment where you want to do it over a long, a time exposure. Why would somebody do that? And why would they present that as good evidence? Because, yeah, he's not going to be able to answer that question without saying, no, I mean, I wanted to force the results and that this is the only way I could make it happen. We know that it's true, so I faked it. So he's going to be like that religious guy who got caught with the earpiece, where his wife is telling him, what to say to the people so he seems mystical, with a radio transmitter. She's got all the document, where they live and, all kinds of information about people. I mean, he's going to be caught in the fraud because that's what it is, a fraud. I mean, he sat there and does this, making waves thing. He knows a single slit doesn't create interference in water, so why is he implying that light's just like water when it's nothing like it? Anyway, if you don't have the right information on top of that, it's a recipe for disaster. I don't know what that means, the right information on top of that. Well, this isn't about the right information. It's just about their religion. They have a faith and a confidence, and they just don't care that the evidence really doesn't support it. They're for their team, and they really don't want to hear that their team is a bunch of rapists. I really don't have much to say about AB Science. Well, I think there's plenty to say about the fact that he's a coward. He's hurled his little insults as if he's smarter than me, or that I misunderstand, or that I'm ignorant, and yet he won't answer any of these questions. Do you think it's a good idea, AB Science, to do a single photon experiment with a photon detector that's getting 7 random photons a second? Well, do you? But yeah, the Venus stuff was being shared left and right on media today. I almost got irritated. Yes, well, whatever. We know that it's all about the public, and it's all about woo, and, this whole bullshit, the word life, and this stupid notion that it just poofs. All you need is a glass of water and put it on Mars, and all of a sudden a bunch of elephants will come walking out of it. I mean, it's so delusional and so stupid and so anti-science. Everything about science says life is preposterously bizarre. I mean, all the one-time events, the whole thing is built on, one kind of neuron. That's it. Not a single other electrical cell. It's like a screensaver. I have to remember to interrupt this. Anyway, not that it really matters. Okay, so we'll just move on to drawing or something. No, I guess I'll play with this a little. Oh, I can't do it that way. I have to do it this way. Okay, there we do a little bit of fun since I'm still there. I don't want that one. That's the one I just had. Yeah, do that one. Good. And we'll move this over. Alright, so let's just go through the simple basics really quick. Hopefully, semi-quick. Alright, so the concept, simple concept. Single slit. Now, they know, Veritasium knows, this will not create interference. So that doesn't work, right? That kind of wave won't work. So we know light has to be doing something other than that. So they make up this Huygens crap and say there's a million little, infinite number of little waves created, and that somehow they not only do this, they create a hump, but they create 2 humps. Okay, 2 waves. So now we can have interference. But the problem is their wave centers aren't anywhere rational, right? Because if there was 2 waves in there, we know that's where the wave centers would be, here and here. But the mathematics says the wave centers have to be here and here. So that's the center, right? I mean, you have to concede there's a wave center, right? The center, the center, the center. That's where the vectors come from, is the center. The vectors come from the center of the wave. So, if you're going to draw it, you have to draw it honestly, right? Now, they never draw it because they don't, it's really, they can never draw two waves because, shit, that'll look stupid. Okay, so they just say there's magically a pattern, and they just say Huygens and forget about it. But the point is when they do the math, this is the distance they use. The math that works, okay, they use this distance, the two surfaces. So if I put the point sources there, obviously the waves would have to look like that, and that doesn't look very good. Like, why does it break here? That doesn't make any sense. And why is it going through the impediment? That doesn't make any sense. So it fails. And, this is just about vectors. It's just about the length of the lines. And it has to be from those 2 points. Now we know Veritasium, I'm sure, has also contemplated the single impediment. Okay, so if I put a single impediment in the way, like a needle, I'm sure he's thought about this. Oh, the waves go in, what comes out? Well, the point sources, again, the math that works, the point sources are here, the surfaces. So where am I going to draw these waves? I have to draw the waves here and here. Oh shit, that doesn't look right. Somewhere it breaks in the middle of nowhere. And how am I going to do Huygens? How am I going to say, oh, Huygens, there's an infinite number of waves that go infinitely. So there's a 2 infinite. Okay, 2 infinite. 2x infinite situation. I not only have an infinite number, but I have an infinite length for the infinite number to be in. So obviously Huygens isn't going to explain why the wave broke here in the middle of nowhere for no reason. Huygens isn't going to give you the answer. So they completely avoid this experiment because obviously that one looks really stupid. I mean, let's see Piro draw these 2 waves. Okay, and say, there, that's how it works. These 2 waves interfere with each other and create the pattern. Because that's where the wave centers have to be. That's the math that works, that predicts the right pattern. Alright, so then we go to the double slit, right? Which is just a combination of those 2 experiments. Kind of obviously. Alright. So now, again, if you go by, so they say Young's double slit experiment. When Young drew this is what Young drew. Is that okay? What does that look like? Well, that looks exactly like this, okay, for the single slit. And we know that doesn't create interference in the single slit, so we know that can't be the right answer for what a slit's doing. And we know that there's 2 patterns, right? So we have a pattern and another pattern. So we have 2 patterns to explain, and we only have 2 waves, and 2 waves aren't going to explain 2 patterns. Now, what math do they use? If they're doing the experiment, they use this distance. Okay, this is the distance they use, surface to surface. And they don't include this because they assume less than a wavelength of slit. So they assume the slit is so tiny that you couldn't barely fit a hair in there. Okay, so, and then, it's nice. You can have a little cheat experiment where you change the conditions so dramatically. Because the catch is if you make these 2 distances the same, that is, this distance and this distance would be just about the same if I make the slit very, very small. So if you put the wave center in the center, then if I make 2 waves in the center and I make the slit really, really tiny, I will get just 1 pattern. You can't get 2 patterns if the distances aren't great enough. And it might be a little bit off because the real distance is going to create the pattern. It's coming off these surfaces, but if there's no difference between this distance and this distance, okay, that is, the slits are so small, then obviously you can't tell whether it's in the middle of that slit or on the edge of that slit, or all 3 positions end up being the same position. So that's the only way they can make their math work. That's it. The only way it works. And as soon as you allow the slits to be open, that is, say 50 wavelengths, which isn't very many, but you make it 50 and 50, and you make this 50. If you do that experiment, well, then you have one distance in the math is going to be 50 wavelengths, and the other difference is this distance is going to be 150 wavelengths. And those wavelength numbers can clearly just be converted into a number of bars in any 90-degree section of the pie. So let's just pretend that's 50 bars. So this would be creating 50 bars from this on this arc of 90 degrees. Okay, and this one's creating 150. So obviously this would be 2 or 3 for every one of the other ones. So so all you're really doing is saying when do these two vectors from these 2 points and the 2 vectors from these 2 points, which is making the big bar, right? The big bar is made from the interior slit. The little bar is made from the little. When those two are both in phase, you get a light spot. When one of those pairs is out of phase, okay, like this one's out of phase at this location, then you get nothing. You get an empty spot. So when all 4 point sources are in phase, you get a bright spot. When any pair is out of phase, you get a dark spot. And that's the pattern. And that explains it perfectly. So the math that works definitely has the 4 point sources. The point sources are not anywhere near the centers. They're right on the surface. And again, it just tells you so overtly. So this is the truth. These are the facts. And again, this is all stuff they could know. They could know that where the point sources are. They see the math. They see the distances they're putting into the equation. They know that the wave center has to be here, and the wave center has to be here, and this wave has to be here, and this wave has to be here. And you can't explain how the wave went through the obstacle and how the wave broke in the middle of nowhere for no reason. Again, the single impediment really just shows